Joy, a feeling of great pleasure and happiness. But what if it's more than that? What if joy is freedom? What if joy is proof of life? What if joy is your birthright? They told you to earn your joy, hustle for it, bleed for it, shrink so you don't have to make anyone else feel uncomfortable, lose sleep for it. But what if joy didn't need a reason? What if you could feel good just because? You don't need perfect timing, permission, or proof. Joy is not a reward. You don't have to work for that. Joy is an inside job. It's a reminder that you're still here, that you're still becoming, that you still have access to light, even in the valley. In this episode, I'm talking all about joy without justification. You see, I used to think that joy had to be earned. Like if I hit a goal, pushed through the hard season, or did enough for everyone else than I did for myself, then that's when I could be happy. That's when I could celebrate with joy and happiness. But joy that needs permission isn't joy. It's performance. And when I stopped chasing trends and when I stopped doing this in my life and my business, stopped showing up how I think others thought I should be living, building a business that looked like everybody else and chasing what they were doing because they had reached a goal of where I wanted to be. The outcome of what they were doing looked like what I was striving for. And so, of course, I started chasing those things. And when I started to chase those things, I started to lose myself and become inauthentic to who I was. And I just started to lose all hope in what I was actually building. Why was I actually doing all of this? Why was I doing any of this? And I realized that when I stopped chasing the trends and stopped performing, that's when true joy began for me. That's when I realized that, hey, I can experience joy without justifying why I'm doing this thing. I've come to believe that joy is a birthright, not a bonus. I don't have to fight for that. You don't need to prove anything to feel good. You don't need the stars to align. And you surely don't need room to be quiet or the people around you to get it. Because what God gave you is for you and not for anybody else. And no one will really understand that. Everyone will not understand that. And you have to be okay with being okay with that. I know I certainly have become okay with that. And once I became okay with it, nothing else really mattered. Joy is yours just because you're here. And I want you to own that. I know that when I started owning that, things started to attract to me that I had been striving for so long. It started coming to me with ease. And it's just been a crazy, crazy experience, to say the least. So let's get real for a second here. Have you ever felt guilty for being happy? You felt shame for feeling it when others around you wasn't experiencing it? And so you began to dim your light. You began to shrink because you didn't want others to feel bad about your joy. You didn't want to make others feel small. And doing that, you began to make yourself feel small because you were trying to, not boast as much as you would have around people who actually get it. It's something different being around people who celebrate your joy with you and don't bring you down. I.e., when telling family, let's tell the truth. When we tell our family, they're like, oh, you're a little this, you're a little that. Oh, how is that doing? See, nobody really wants to see you doing better than them, right? When they see you on the same journey and the same path as them, everything is fine. But then when they start to see you not care about what they think or ask their opinion, now all of a sudden it's a problem. And it's not for you. I know I've experienced that. Life finally let up for a moment for me. And instead of enjoying it, I had begun to shrink. Because again, I just didn't want to deal with the reaction from family and friends. And so I shrank. And in shrinking, I become so small that I lost myself. I know I can't be the only one. You begin to downplay it. You brace for the next thing to go wrong because joy feels unfamiliar, unsafe even. You see, there's more interest in when things are going wrong versus when things are going right in your life, in your business, obviously. We can't really talk about our business to our family because they don't get it. And then we can't really talk about it to our friends because they don't get it either. They would rather talk about other things than building you up, right? They want to be there to gossip and tear you down and make you feel as though what you're doing is not as big as you know it can and will be. And this is where you have to start to shift, right? You have to start shifting your surroundings and your atmosphere and even shifting your circles. Every circle can't grow with you depending on what season you're going in. Some seasons, the circles get smaller, and that's okay. Here's the thing. When you've lived in survival mode for so long, you begin to feel like that's all there is to life. It's really hard to experience joy because you're always in survival mode versus thriving. But here's the truth about that. Joy isn't just a fleeting emotion. It's an act of resistance. It's rebellion in a world that thrives on burnout and trauma bonding. Joy says, I get to feel good even if I'm still healing. I get to laugh even while grieving. I don't owe anyone an explanation for my peace. Let me say it again for you, and let me be louder about this. And I'm shouting it from the mountaintops. You don't need to justify your joy. Not to your boss, not to your friends, not to your family, not to your timeline, not even to yourself. This week, I sat in the sun with no agenda. I made some seafood pasta salad. I got some truffle chips, some watermelon, some chocolate chip cookies, some sparkling water. I packed me a bag. Baby, and listen, I went to the park. I put on my AirPods, listened to a good book, sat by the water, and just enjoyed. And I didn't have to justify it. It just was because. It was because I wanted to feel the sun on my face. I wanted to feel like, what would the day be like without rushing, without having to get on to the next thing? You have to create moments of joy for yourself. You cannot put that expectation on other people. I had no phone, no productivity hacks, just vibes, just me, just nature. And I got to enjoy seeing everybody in the park just enjoying themselves. I got to people watch. That was just so amazing. I got to vibe out. I was in my own little world. I took my shoes off and just allow myself to wiggle my toes and fall out and just have a good time. I had made a, what did I make? I made a blood orange mimosa. It just was an amazing time, and I just felt so much joy just being able to be. It felt good not having to justify it, not having to say, if I do this, then I'm going to reward myself with that. No, I want to experience life to the fullest. That's joy enough for me. And so that was joy, right? And joy looks different for everybody. I encourage you to go find out what joy means for you. That joy that I took for myself was unplanned, it was unearned, and it was unapologetic. And that's what I want for you too. Now, here's the kicker. Sometimes what we call joy is actually performance, okay? We smile for the photo. We are grateful through the pressure. And we push through when our body is begging for softness. And we keep pushing it. Baby, allow yourself to feel the emotions. That's where true joy comes in. When you allow yourself to feel the grief, the pain, the hurt, the anger, the shame, the overwhelm, the burnout. When you can get through all of that, you can see that joy at the end of that tunnel. is waiting for you to get there, but you can't get there suppressing your feelings. That's not going to work no more. And if you don't know how to identify them, I've said this before, and I'm going to shout this to the mountaintop. Go to thefeelingswheel.com and start to name your feelings or the closest thing to it. So you can start naming it and releasing it, because it has no place for where joy wants to take you. And I think I said this in a previous episode, but Inside Out, that movie was so good. It really helped give me a visual about emotions and naming them, and how helping me to really start getting comfortable with being uncomfortable and understanding what those feelings are for me, and understanding how I need to navigate them, and knowing where they show up in my body, how they show up when I talk to certain people, right? How do I react to certain things? And I started to change those things, because if it doesn't bring me joy, I certainly don't want to be performative. So I had to start to evaluate, what does that really look like for me? But authentic joy, baby, listen, authentic joy, it feels like exhaling, like I'm waiting to exhale. It's grounded, it's warm, it's embodied. I embodied this now. And it doesn't need an audience to be real. You can be real all by yourself. You don't need no accolades. You don't need no awards. Joy is also the secret sauce to your creativity. Mind blown emoji. Let me tell you something. When I started to really get in tune with my emotions and really understand my grief, what I was grieving, how I was grieving, and what I needed to do to move forward, while still allowing space for grief to happen, because it's still going to show up, I no longer felt shame about feeling joy and grief, sadness, pain when it all comes up for me, because there will be seasons of that. But now I know how to navigate it. I navigate it by allowing myself to feel. Listen, it's not easy. It's not easy, but it's so worth it. This is where I really started to see my creativity come back, because I felt like I had lost my creativity for a long time. And until recently, I think maybe a couple years now, I really just stopped chasing the trends. I stopped chasing what I saw everybody doing. I think there was one point in time on social where it was just like I was seeing the same thing, so I felt like I had to do it. I felt like I had to create those things. I felt like I needed to create uh courses and be a coach, and have digital products and do all the things that, my algorithm was pushing my way, like, oh, I need to do this and I need to do it this way. And when doing that, you start to become like everybody else, and then it started to become very performative. And I just didn't like that. And so I stepped away and realized, like, okay, God, show me, what was I supposed to be doing before I got distracted by all of this? Get me back on track to where I was supposed to be going. Where am I supposed to be going? And the detour was necessary. The detour was necessary. The distractions was necessary, because along the way, I was able to cultivate and pick up some things that I needed along the way, so that when I got back to where I was originally intended to go, I was equipped to handle the things that came my way. And I'm so grateful for those times. I'm so grateful for the detours. I'm so grateful for the distractions. I started to feel good about my ideas. They started to flow differently. I stopped creating from pressure. I stopped creating from the pressure to perform. And then I just started to create from presence. So when I stopped chasing those trends, would you believe that I started to attract the right aligned clients that I have been striving for so long, that I have been begging for people to see me, work with me, pick me, choose me. And in that, I didn't have to promote my business anymore. I said, you know what? I'm going to take a rest. And honestly, God set me down, if we're being honest. But I was like, all right, I'm about to be obedient. I'm about to surrender. And it took me a long time to get there because I just really didn't see where God was taking me. And, you know, what we really need, honestly, is just to know what is the next step. I just need clarity for the next step. And once I started shifting my mindset to stop worrying about the 20 steps that I need to see everything first before I can say, okay, God, I'm going to do it. Nah. God, just what's the next step? What I'm supposed to do? So God was like, all right, we're not doing this no more. I was like, but that's what everybody know me for. Well, they're going to know you for something different. I was like, okay, period. And so I just really started to lean and trust in God and really say, okay, God, what does this look like for me? And how do you want me to show up and be present? So I just started trusting God. And in trusting God, I started to trust myself more. And it's just been such a beautiful journey to experience. So if you've been creatively stuck, maybe it's not the strategy you need. Maybe it's joy. Where do you need to find joy again in your life and in your business? What does that look like for you? What are areas that are performative versus true joy for yourself? Take inventory of that. One of my faith anchors is Psalm 30, verse 5. And especially when I was going through my time of grief, weeping may endure for a night, but joy comes in the morning. And when you're in a deep grief season, it's really hard to see that. I'm going to be honest. It's really hard to see that. But I had to keep reaffirming and knowing that even in your darkest hour, baby, the sun still has to shine. It still has to come out. Light still has to shine. It gets dark before it gets light. So that's why I know that joy is going to come in the morning. Right? And so I had to remember and remind myself of that because it just was really hard in those seasons to really believe that that was true. It doesn't say that joy comes when the launch is perfect. It doesn't say joy comes after the healing is done. It says joy comes, period. So I want you to start celebrating those micro wins. Let's celebrate the small joys. Let's celebrate the big wins. If you laugh today, that's joy. Thank God that you have the ability to laugh. If you dance while folding laundry, while cooking your food, while making your smoothie, while making your matcha, while making your coffee, while making your tea, baby, that's joy. If you said no and felt peace, that's joy too. I want you to take a moment to reflect. Where in your life are you still waiting for permission to feel joy? It's not dependent on anybody else but you. Stop waiting for somebody else to dictate your joy. And what would that look like if you let joy meet you right where you are? This week, I want you to do one thing that brings you joy for no reason at all. Sing in the car, buy the flowers, book the trip, reset without guilt. Turn your phone on D&D without guilt. Baby, guess what? They're going to be all right. They're going to be all right. You don't need to be accessible. Everybody who needs to access you already has access. Access has already been granted to them. Right? It's about proximity and access. And you get to choose who gets to have what in your life. Protect your joy at all costs. Protect your happiness at all costs. Joy doesn't need a justification, and neither do you. And I want to remind you of what I said in the beginning. Joy is a feeling of great pleasure and happiness. What are you doing to make sure that you feel great pleasure and happiness in your life and in your business? Until next time, keep creating with purpose and pleasure. Both kinds of pleasure, okay? Because we adults. Baby, allow yourself to feel pleasure, joy, and happiness. Allow yourself to feel those things. You are deserving. You are worthy. You don't need an excuse for it. Enjoy joy without justification. Thank you for listening to the Purpose to Create podcast. If you haven't yet, subscribe, leave a 5-star review, and send this episode to a friend. Until next time, keep creating with purpose.